The Boros Legion are the soldiers of Ravnica, and appropriately enough, these soldiers get better in groups. One of the more aggressive Gatecrash guilds, they have the keyword Battalion. When a creature with the Battalion keyword attacks in a group of 3 with 2 other attacking creatures, it creates a trigger that will often boost the creature in combat, or even the entire party, such as Frontline Medic or Legion Loyalist. The Boros are led by Aurelia the War Leader, and I'm going to go ahead and let Gerry lead you through the Boros Legion in Gatecrash Limited.
Hey everyone, I'm Gerry Thompson, and today I'm representing the Boros Legion. Now, some of you might think of me as a blue mage, and that would basically be correct, but in Limited, you can't really draft the decks that I want to play, unfortunately. So, rule number 1 with Boros is always be attacking. And that's basically what I want to be doing in Limited. I want to be aggressive, I want to put them on the defensive, and I just want to beat the crap out of them as soon as possible, and I think with Boros, we can make that happen. So, the good thing about Boros is that while you have something like Battalion, which is a great mechanic to build around, you're not really reliant on it. Like something like Dimir or Orzhov, they're going to be all reliant on synergy, and while Boros kind of is, you don't necessarily need that to be good. It's like decks like Gruul are going to have Blood Rush and decent creatures, and they're just going to be like attacking and Blood Rushing, and then that's it. You know, you don't really need any synergy for that, and that's kind of the same thing with Boros. So you have your bread and butter commons like Daring Skyjack, Boros Elite, Fire Fist Striker, and Wojek Halberdiers, which, while you have Battalion, those cards are awesome, but you don't necessarily need Battalion to make those things good. So the next common I want to talk about is Sky Knight Legionnaire, which, again, is solid on its own, but having a haste creature to trigger Battalion when you only started the turn with 2 creatures in play, it's just very, very powerful, and people probably won't expect that. So having a haste creature in your deck basically just makes Battalion that much better. So sometimes with Boros, you're going to want to be triggering Battalion every turn. Okay, so sometimes you're going to have to attack like a 1-1 into their 2-2 or 3-3 just to trigger Battalion and get in some damage. And that kind of sucks. You don't really want to be throwing away cards just to get in damage a lot of the time. So we need some tricks to keep those little guys alive. So something like Martial Glory is just the perfect card. It's basically the Boros Giant Growth. Like, you can just Giant Growth one guy, or you can split it up into 2 different things, which I think makes it perfect for Boros, because you're going to have something like Wojek Halberdiers, which is going to be able to first strike down a bigger guy, and then you can +0/+3 your smaller guy, so it doesn't die to their bigger guy. And I think that's just perfect. And then basically Boros is going to be relying on tempo to get them through a lot of games, because their card quality is not insane compared to something like Gruul, which is just going to have like more efficient, better creatures. So you want to use cards like Mugging that are very cheap. They're going to do their job. You're either going to like shock a guy to get it out of the way, or make it so their bigger guy can't block. And then since it's only 1 mana, you're going to be able to play another spell. And hopefully you're going to be able to trap them in the early game, where you get to play multiple spells a turn, just like flood the board, and they're stuck playing just like 1 guy a turn, and they're too slow to keep up with you. So for another trick, I really like Righteous Charge, because it fits in with the game plan of what you're doing already, which is attacking with a bunch of creatures. So that's kind of like a little mini overrun for this type of deck, and I think it works very, very well. The next card I want to talk about is Smite, and it's kind of awkward because it's not really what you want to be doing, but against decks like Gruul, you're really going to want that 1 mana effect. Like they want to be attacking and blood rushing you once you block, to kill your blocker, maybe get in some extra trample damage or something, and Smite just kind of brick walls all of that. And again, like Mugging, it's only 1 mana, so you're going to be able to like play a guy, pass the turn, they attack, you block, and then you just smite their guy after they try and pump it, and that's going to be very, very key to your victory. So one of the good things about Boros is that the commons are all pretty deep. Like you're almost never going to have a dry pack, and at the end of a draft, you're almost certainly going to have enough playables. So your deck is almost never going to be bad, and you're not reliant on any one thing. So the deck is very much the sum of its parts, and you don't necessarily need like the 1-drop Evolve guys, for example, like Simic does, to really work. So I think no matter what, if you end up in Boros, your deck is going to be solid just because of the depth of the commons. So moving on to the uncommons, the first one I want to talk about is Holy Mantle. And again, this is not really what you want to be doing. It's not a Battalion card or anything like that, but it does give you that reach, that evasion, to let you get in the last few points of damage. So I think while it doesn't help your Battalion plan at all, it's still very, very good. Cards like Sunhome Guildmage and Ordron Veteran are both perfect for this deck. The Guildmage gives you like it's like a one-card army basically. Like for a few turns of investment, you get a bunch of 1/1s, and then you can use those to trigger battalion on some of your other guys. And then after that, like you have the mana with the Guildmage to pump the rest of your guys too. So I think that card's going to be very important. Again, being able to curve out is very, very important too. So having that be a 2-drop and a very reasonable 2-drop at that is perfect. Ordrin Veteran is just like another solid guy with battalion, but once it gets double strike, it's going to be very tough for them to block. You know, like there's not many 4 toughness guys in this set, and even if there are, like you're never just going to be like suiciding that guy into their guys. So it's always going to trade with something. It's always going to be good. And then moving on from there, we have Boros Charm, which is obviously a very powerful card, probably a little bit better constructed because you can build your deck to have more burn, and so then the Boros Charm by itself is more important to your game plan because you can burn them out from something like 10. And in Limited, you don't really have that capability. So maybe being able to get them down to 4 and finishing off the game with Boros Charm is important, but I just like the aspect of basically giving your guy first strike with it, not necessarily double strike because that's not going to be very relevant, but if you attack like your Boros Elite into their 3/3, you're going to be able to like basically trade Boros Charm to keep a guy in play. So I think that part is very, very good. Or also just giving your guys indestructible. It's like, you know, kind of the same thing. And then we have True Fire Paladin, which, like the Guildmage, is just a solid 2-drop, and that's just going to be a card that you're going to use to fill your curve. Is nothing super exciting or anything. But for exciting, we have the rares. Now, you would expect a lot of rares to be good, especially for Limited, and Boros does not disappoint in that fact, because for Mythics, we have Aurelia's Fury and Aurelia the War Leader, both of which, if you draw them and cast them, you're probably going to win the game because they are that good. There's not really much to say about them. Like, they're just awesome cards. If you open them, you're going to take them, and it's going to make your deck awesome. And kind of in that vein, we have Firemane Avenger, which, while not as powerful as the Mythic cards, if you get to attack with that thing and trigger the battalion, it's going to put them so far behind that they're probably not going to be able to catch up. Like, that card is definitely a first pick, and it's going to make your deck awesome. It's going to make you want to be Boros. And then we have a couple other rares that are pretty good. We have Angelic Skirmisher and Foundry Champion. Not as good as the rares beforehand, but they're also like a little on the slow side. Like, I would definitely rather have Firemane Avenger over either of these two, even though the 6 mana cards effects are more powerful. But Angelic Skirmisher, being able to give your guys lifelink to win a race or first strike so that they can't block that turn, basically, is going to be very, very good. And Foundry Champion basically just comes into play and kills the thing, or Lava Axes them, kind of finishes out the game. And the one that I really want is Frontline Medic, so that you can always attack with Battalion and never lose your guys in combat. And it's just going to make combat basically impossible for them, and they're going to have to like start chump blocking your guys and stuff, and there's basically no way for them to come back from that unless they have a removal spell. And then the last card is Assemble the Legion, and for the most part, I want to just be drafting like this very slick, smooth beatdown deck. And Assemble the Legion doesn't really fit into all that. It's like a very late game oriented card, but I do think that having this beatdown deck with an extra capability, like having some sort of late game card is very, very powerful, because sometimes the games do go long, like they stabilize early because they have an awesome draw, or like your draw isn't very good after a mulligan or whatever. But Assemble the Legion is very, very powerful, definitely allows you to come back after you've had like some bad starts, and allows you to stabilize. So I do think that even though it doesn't necessarily synergize well with the rest of your deck, because you're just like attack, 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 and I just need this thing to like get through the last points of damage, and then you play like this super slow card, it doesn't really help you a lot. But there are going to be games where that card just wins you the game on the spot. So I definitely think that card's very good as well. So at the end of the day, I think Dimir is probably going to be a pretty easy matchup. They're trying to like sneak in some points with like some like overcosted unblockable guys, maybe Cypher you, but like all those cards are really slow and they're trying to mill you out, but you can definitely kill them before they mill you. And they don't have a lot of great ways of stabilizing or a lot of good removal or anything, so I think that's definitely going to be a good matchup. The bad matchup is probably Orzhov. They have a 3-mana 1/4 guy with Extort, and both of those things are awesome against you. Like having things with high toughness and things that are able to just like block down your Fire Fist strikers and have the guys still live is just very, very good for them. In the mid to late game, they're going to be able to start extorting you and like gaining some of that life back and like maybe putting you on a clock and stuff. And I think overall that matchup might be pretty tough. Simic and Gruul are going to be pretty close. I think it's about like whose deck is better, who has the better draw, you know, who's able to tempo out the other person. But I have faith in Boros. I think we can do it. So If you're looking to play Boros at Grand Prix Charlotte, just remember, always be attacking.